Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is HarrisX founder and CEO, Dritan Nesho. Dritan, thanks for coming back on.
Thanks for having me back, Brittany.
A week ago today, Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as former President Donald Trump, met on the debate stage for the first time for their first presidential debate. Today, HarrisX and Forbes has a poll about what voters think about that debate, what went down on that stage in Philadelphia last Tuesday night. Tell us some of your takeaways.
So we conducted a poll between September 11 and September 13, so essentially the 3 days after the debate. It's over 3,000 registered voters that took the poll with a very small margin of error of less than 2%. And it's really one of the most interesting polls that we have done together with Forbes, in the sense that it's clear that Kamala Harris won the debate, and she used the stage to better her position with voters. All of the metrics of the poll, which we'll get into in a second, are quite positive for her. However, it didn't really move the horse race much. And that suggests one of two different things: either that she has now met a resistance level or hit a ceiling, which could be temporary, and there is an unanswered need amongst voters. And what we're seeing in the poll is really an unanswered need around more depth on the issues and explaining what her positions are. Or this is a harbinger of potentially her opening up a lead on Trump, and it might take a little bit more time, and voters might need to hear a little bit more from her and see her in a few more settings like the debate stage. But she clearly has the edge right now in the election. And not to bury the lead longer, but Harris is up 3 points in the horse race. She's at 48%, Trump is at 45%, and 8% are undecided. And she's roughly 3 points ahead when you factor in those undecideds the way they break the leaners. A slight bump from the last time around, but not a huge bump, at least not as the debate would have you think, right? That she did quite well, and you would expect her opening up a more significant lead than 3 points on Trump.
When I was watching the debate, something I was thinking about was, what are the independent voters thinking? Because there's a section of voters that are never Trump voters, and regardless of what happened on that stage, they're not voting for Donald Trump. Then you have Trump's base, and no matter what happens on that debate stage, they're not voting for Kamala Harris. But after the debate, what are those independent voters thinking?
Great question. So independents, when you factor in leaners, are largely split still, and that makes a lot of sense because independent voters, they're less affected or swayed by the rhetoric and the positioning of the candidates, and these are more issues voter and voters that react to the issues that they feel are affecting their lives and will make them better off or worse off in the future. And in that sense, what we're seeing amongst these independent voters is that you know they are still sitting on the fences, right? Uh, uh, a large group of those undecideds are actually independents. Independents make up the significant majority of undecided voters today.
Well, if they're still sitting on the fence, we're 50 days out, actually less than 50 days out from election day now. So what's going to get them off the fence and either go with Harris, with Trump, sit on the couch, or go with a third party candidate?
Again, I think it's the focus on issues, and I'll explain why in a second. But I just wanted to highlight a point, right? That whereas amongst all voters, only about 8% are undecided, and that's roughly 3% of Republicans that are still undecided and 2% of Democrats. It's 19% of independents who remain undecided. And further to that, when you look at the way those undecided independents are leaning, Trump actually has a little bit of an edge over Harris with those undecided independents. He's winning about 54% to her winning 46%. This number oscillates a little bit in different polls, but at a minimum, these undecideds, which are predominantly independents, are being split. And again, they are still up for grabs. Another way to look at the state of the election is to look at swing voters.
Dritan, can you talk to us a little bit about the swing voters? Who are they and where are they going?
Sure. So undecideds are one element of the path forward in this election in the next 45 to 50 days. And as we said, they're 8% of the electorate and overwhelmingly independent. However, you do have swing voters, voters that still haven't made up their mind and could still switch their position within the electorate as well. We asked the question, have you made up your mind on who you will vote for in November, or are you still weighing the choices? And about 18% of the electorate are still weighing the choices. That includes 12% of Republicans, 13% of Democrats, and 30% of independents. And the swing voters go beyond sort of the independents. They're the voters in the middle that, again, haven't been convinced yet. And it seems from our poll that the reason is the position on issues and a vision for the future, a vision for the next 4 years. These voters who tend to lean a little bit female, tend to be younger, between 18 and 50 years old, tend to be multi-ethnic, they tend to skew Hispanic, slightly African American or Asian American, and they tend to be on equal basis both in urban areas and in rural areas. Again, these are voters that are waiting to be swayed by the candidates on actual issue positions rather than the performance in debates or the performance on the stump.
So let's talk about what people think about each candidate when it comes to the issues, because one of the gripes that some voters, some pundits had with Kamala Harris is that she was high on vibes, a little light on policy. When she was at the DNC in August, there still wasn't policy on her campaign website. It went up within a day or two before the debate. But do voters feel now, after listening to the debate for about 90 minutes, that they have a good sense of what her policy was, A, and B, that she laid out a good vision for the next 4 years should she be president?
Absolutely. So we asked the question on whether or not voters in general, and then obviously those who saw the debate, thought that each of the candidates offered new solutions to the issues that they and their family are facing today, or failed to do so. And the reality is that while Kamala Harris did better than Trump in communicating on the debate stage, both of them fell short of a majority of voters saying that they offered new solutions for the future. For Harris, it was 45% that said that she offered new solutions for the future, 42% said she failed to do so, and 13% are really unsure. So there's some softness there, right? And equal numbers said that she failed to offer solutions to the people that said she did so. And then for Trump, 36% thought that he offered new solutions for the future. 52% said that he failed to do so. So again, you see the gap in performance between the two different candidates, but it's clear from these numbers that Harris didn't go far enough. And voters want more detail on policies and more detail on the future, her future plans for the country.
For the past year at least, the economy has been the top issue facing voters, and prices were lower under Trump than they have been under Biden. Harris is Biden's vice president, and she's had to answer that question of what do you say to voters when they say prices, my life was more affordable under Trump. Do voters largely think that President Trump is better fit at handling the economy than Vice President Harris.
Well, President Trump is not talking about the economy, right? I mean, he started the debate talking about the economy, and that was arguably the best moment of the debate.
And then in that question, he did switch to immigration, which I was surprised
Right.
because the economy is a weak spot for Democrats right now.
Yeah, so he clearly won on immigration. Voters thought that he offered more information on immigration, a better policy on immigration in the debate. But that is by and large the only issue that he won outright. And on the other side, voters responded to Kamala Harris's talking points and her positions on abortion, and that is the issue that she won outright. But the economy came out as a wash. When we asked in our poll, which of the candidates do you think has a better position on the issue of the economy, it was 44% Trump, 44% Harris, and 12% undecided. And in general, voters thought that there wasn't enough focus in the debate on inflation, on fiscal responsibility and the budget deficit, on some of the hard issues that they're facing today. So it was a missed opportunity for both of the candidates to focus on the economy. And frankly, these voters in the middle, this is what they will respond to the most, the economy.
You and I had a conversation about this poll before, and I would love for you to break down this concept that you told to me. You said you think this election, based on these numbers, is going to be Trump v. Trump and Kamala v. Kamala. Can you talk about what that means?
Absolutely. So President Trump stumbled in this debate. Vice President Harris made a case for her ability to lead in the debate. However, it's less about them generating cross pressure on one another, and it's much more about who is the most disciplined in the path forward. Both of these candidates have multiple paths to victory going forward, and it's really a question of them being able to hit on the right tones with the electorate, to hit on questions like inflation, questions like the economy, go deep on the issues and focus less on the rhetoric. And while President Trump veered off his strong issues, the economy in particular, in the debate, and took the bait on some questions like crowd sizes, which frankly indicated that he's more obsessed with his own standing than with the standing of voters. And Kamala Harris did a nice job of convincing voters that she's ready for the highest office in the land, and she came across as being more presidential in the debate. It's still not enough, right? And both of these candidates have to build up their case for voters with a vision for the next 4 years, with concrete policy issues, and this will make the difference in the next 45 days. Where we stand right now is that Kamala Harris has had two doubles. One was the convention, and I'm using a baseball analogy, so not a home run, but two doubles. One was a debate convention, and the other one was, one was the convention, and the other one was the debate. And Trump obviously stumbled in the debate, but it's still a very, very tight election. And the fact that despite everything, the horse race moved from Harris being +2 prior to the debate to Harris being +3 after the debate, that shows that voters are looking for something different and something more from both of the candidates. Right now, it seems like both candidates have met a resistance level or a ceiling in terms of their ability to move forward, and there's still 8% who are undecided and close to 20% who are swing voters, right? So just this election, just with those numbers, this election could go either way in the next 45 to 50 days.
To continue your baseball analogy there, a double's a really good at bat, but by no means is that winning the game. So this is very close. So talk about both Vice President Kamala Harris's and President Trump's pathway to victory.
Well, I mean, the race is very tight on a series of very important parameters. For example, Vice President Harris's lead with women is very narrow. It's only a few points over Donald Trump. Vice President's lead with Hispanics is also quite narrow, and President Trump again is within striking distance. And again, you have this 20% of undecided voters in the middle, as I mentioned, younger, more female, educated, but both urban and rural, that essentially convey that there are, paths to victory for Trump through the rural vote, through the female vote, especially in suburban areas, as there are paths to victory for Vice President Harris through the urban vote, through the younger vote, through the female vote as well. So that's what I mean, that it's really a wide open election. And in a situation like this, and in a dynamic as we're seeing in this poll, both of the candidates are susceptible to an October surprise. And that's October surprise could be on a range of different issues that are top of mind for the electorate. It could be on the economy and inflation. It could be on foreign policy, or it could be on an event that, frankly, no one foresees. In the event of an October surprise, what is clear is that Vice President Harris is seen as continuity with the Biden administration. Today, 70% of voters say that they feel they have a good grasp of where she stands, even though at the same time they tell you that they don't really have a lot of depth on her policy positions. So that's a bit paradoxical. And that means that she is seen as continuity with the Biden administration and holds the bag on a whole array of issue positions that the Biden administration has made. If it is an October surprise on any of these areas, it could affect her because voters will immediately associate her with the position of the Biden administration. That is, if it is a negative October surprise based on those policies. So I think that this race is only opening up, and the next 45 to 50 days will be quite interesting.
To say the least, really. And it's been clear from our conversation today, from past conversations, just how tight of a race this is. And we've been saying for months that this is going to be a turnout election. So is the more important question here of what's the likelihood of these leaners actually getting off the couch and going to vote on November 5th?
So it looks that this will be not as high of a turnout election as 2020, but not far off. And what I mean by that is both of the bases seem to be mobilized. Again, there is 10% of voters on both the Republican side and the Democratic side, and a little bit more really, that are yet to make up their mind. And they can go either way. And then obviously you have these 8 to 10% of undecideds in the middle. So I think that it will not be a low turnout election as the expectations were when it was Biden v. Trump. And Harris's entrance into the race and Biden's exit really remobilized and provided momentum to Democratic voters. And then Trump has always been a high floor, low ceiling politician, which means that he's always preserved the energy of his base and the ability to turn that base out. And maybe this explains also why you see very little difference in the horse race in a debate that, when we ask the question based on what you saw in the debate, are you more likely to vote for one candidate or the other? And, Trump's numbers were very split. 33 said more likely to vote for him. 35% said less likely to vote for him. So within sort of that margin of error. And 32% said no impact. And then with Harris, about 42% said more likely to vote for her. 29% said less likely to vote for her. So 13-point positive response there. And again, close to 30% said it did not have an impact. And so, again, you see sort of the dynamic of the race just in this set of responses. Harris is inching up, she's gaining, she has the edge, and she has solid momentum in the race, but Trump was the candidate to beat. And Trump still preserves the support of his base. And you have these independents in the middle that, frankly, don't really care about the rhetoric one way or another. They care about issues, they care about positions, they care about going deep and going technical and really speaking to how it's going to make their life better off in the next 4 years. And that is what will make the difference in the next 45 days. Who is best able to speak to these voters in the middle?
Before we continue talking about the next 45 days, I would love to just go back to the debate really quick and flip the question to the moderators. Did voters think that the ABC debate was fair? Because as the debate was playing out, if you were on X, you saw people, weighing in as they usually do, and people, largely Republicans and right-leaning commentators, were saying that they thought the ABC moderators weren't fair, that they were harder on Trump. Then you saw others, largely Democrats, saying that you only blame the refs when you're losing. So voters, what did they think?
So the answer to the question, do you think ABC conducted a fair and balanced debate or not, is roughly split. About 52% said yes, that they were fair and balanced in the handling of the debate. About 30% said no, and 18% are unsure. And so, and then when you look at the party splits, obviously 53% of Republicans, a majority, said that they were unfair. 79% of Democrats said that they were fair. And, independents kind of tend to lean on saying, it was by and large fair debate, not an unfair debate. They were 44% fair, 31% unfair, and, 25% in the middle. But certainly you don't want to see numbers like this, right? You don't want an open question around the moderator's performance. And a 50-50 split on a question like this is an open question. So there was room for improvement in that performance, especially given how many people watched the debate, right? In our poll, a full 48% of all registered voters said that they watched the full debate. And then another 27% said they watched some of the debates or so clips of it online. So this, by and large, matches the numbers that we've gotten in terms of viewership. This was a debate that a lot of people tuned in for. And again, it's a debate that, while measured in its impact on the horse race, perhaps is setting the stage for the next 45 days of the campaign and of the election.
So we have the first debate between Harris and Trump under our belts. Seems like, as of now, as we sit here, that's going to be the last one. So read the tea leaves for us for the next 45 days, because at the beginning of the conversation, you said this was one of the most interesting polls we ever conducted because it shows one of two things. Either she hit a ceiling or she's opening up the race. When will we be able to tell which one that is?
I think we'll know within the next week or two. If the horse race stabilizes, then she's clearly hit a ceiling. And what I mean by that is that if you look at the long arc of this campaign, when it was Biden versus Trump and then now Harris versus Trump, the polls have always shifted 2 to 3 points in the direction of one candidate, 2 to 3 points in the direction of the other candidate. And it's been very divided, right? Indicating a very divided electorate and a very, very tight race heading into this election. The only differences have been, after Biden's poor debate performance, which opened questions on his ability to run for president, that the polls really showed an opening for Donald Trump. But otherwise, you take away these, few moments in time, and this race has always been very, very tight. If the horse race stabilizes again, if it starts ping-ponging again, then it's fair to say that the electorate is split. It's going to be a very tight race. And the rhetoric that both of the candidates have offered has yielded them this toss-up election position. But really, the final difference has to be made with those undecideds, with those swing voters. It can be made on a base turnout model. And that's kind of the election that we're looking at. And that's a healthy election. Usually in American politics, it's 20% in the middle that like both of the candidates or dislike both of the candidates at the same time. We've seen it both ways that end up deciding which way the election goes. And again, these are moderate voters, right? These are voters that want government to function. They want compromise between Democrats and Republicans, and they are less responsive to the rhetoric. And that's good, especially in a country where we've had two assassination attempts on one of the leading candidates. These voters are the tone it down voters and give me actual solutions voters, rather than the red meat voters that tend to live within the bases of each of the parties.
Well, Dritan, per usual, I appreciate the numbers and you breaking them down. Obviously, we have a lot of conversations ahead of us in the next 50 days between now and the election, and I'm excited for every single one of them. Dritan, Nesho, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Brittany, and thank you, Team Forbes.